doesn't require, the bill
I move
doesn't
the table.
require a hospital to grant admitting procedures.
Representative Turner to close. Mrs. Lautenberg moved to table.
Thank you very, very much. In the bill, it requires doctors in these clinics to get admitting privileges to hospitals. The Texas Hospital Association says in its testimony before State Affairs, in most cases, we're not going to grant those privileges. The bill itself does not mandate hospitals to provide those privileges. And if the bill mandates it, if the Hospital Association says we're not going to grant them, then in essence, you don't have doctors that are available to perform these procedures, whether you're 2 weeks or whether you're 20 weeks. It is as simple as that. The bill, in effect, becomes a de facto bar to almost any abortions in the state of Texas. And that's precisely, I think that's the intent. Let's call it what it is. That's the intent. The intent is to end abortions in the state of Texas. And this is a, how can I say it as a, this is a verbose way of trying to do what you want to do when you constitutionally can't do it, but you're doing it anyway. It is a recipe for litigation, and if once it passes, it will be in the courthouse just as quick can say quick, and we will fight this in court another day. So, having said that,
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Sheets, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield?
Would you yield, Mr. Turner?
I'll be more than happy to yield.
Mr. Turner, could you again please briefly explain to me what your amendment is doing?
The amendment simply says the bill requires doctors in these 42 clinics to have admitting privileges in hospitals. Based on the testimony that was given on July the 2nd by the Hospital Association witness, she said that most hospitals in the state of Texas, primarily outside of Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio, will not grant hospital privileges to doctors who are primarily performing abortions outside of their hospitals, primarily because of liability purposes. And I understand that. I've been a lawyer for 33 years. I understand that. And so if that is the case, the bill creates a de facto bar to any abortion, whether it's 20 weeks or 2 weeks. What my bill does is that it more narrowly restricts the bill only to apply to those physicians where there is not a written policy on the part of the hospitals that will remove them or deny them hospital privileges, even if they are the best of doctors. That's all it does. And because if the goal is the health and safety of women, and if we want the bill, the basic intent of the bill, the amendment is intended to narrowly restrict the bill and to say only to those doctors where hospitals have made a blanket decision not to grant hospital privileges, you will not be bound by this particular section of the bill. That's all it does.
And Mr. Turner, are you familiar with Chapter 103 of the Occupations Code?
Chapter 1 of which code?
Chapter 103 of the Occupations Code.
Tell me what it says.
Well, it deals with, well, I'll give you the title. It's provisions applying to health professions generally. And Section 103.002B says a hospital or healthcare facility may not discriminate against a physician, nurse, staff member, or employee because of the person's willingness to participate in an abortion procedure at another facility. And since we already have that codified in current statute, do you think your amendment is necessary? Because discrimination against physicians is unlawful at this point.
Basically, the position that hospitals have taken is that if you are engaged in these procedures, but you're also engaged in other things in their hospital, we will allow admitting privileges. But if your primary practice is providing these procedures outside of the hospital, we are not obligated to grant you admitting privileges, and neither will we grant you admitting privileges, because we do not want to be held legally liable for what you do outside of the hospital when we don't have any direct control over you. That is, as a lawyer, let me tell you, that is a powerful argument. Well, I understand why the Hospital Association would say no, and I would like to think the members would like to think that as well. Now, if you want to follow through on the intent of the bill and make sure that physicians in these ambulatory surgical centers can practice in hospitals, then we need to mandate that they provide hospital privileges.
And are you going to deny that currently that there are physicians out there who perform abortions at abortion facilities that are admitted to hospitals already throughout the state?
Outside of Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio, there are very few hospitals that will grant admitting privileges to doctors that perform abortions outside of their clinics. Matter of fact,
you're in violation of Chapter 103 of the Occupations Code?
The hospitals are more fearful of being sued and liability than anything else that we may be saying on this floor. With respect to abortions, for example...
Well, it's not something that we're saying on this House floor. It's in current statute. This is the law of the land, sir.
No. What I'm indicating to you is what the Hospital Association indicated to us, is that it cannot be that a doctor is simply performing an abortion outside of their hospital. They must have some other specialty where they are looking at that particular doctor beyond what that doctor is doing outside of the hospital in that particular clinic. It's more to it than that.
And that's a great point, because don't we have doctors who are not OBGYNs, but there are other practices performing abortions right now in the state of Texas?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear you. Say it one more time.
Well, don't we have doctors who are not OBGYNs? They practice in other fields performing abortions in the state of Texas right now?
I can't speak to that. I do not know. I would defer to the Texas Hospital Association. I do not know. I'm not a doctor. I'm a lawyer, so I don't know.
You would admit that organizations can be incorrect in their interpretation of the law or their practices. Well, we find all the time. I'm a lawyer as well. Well, there's several times where my clients are taking actions that are contrary to the law, and then I have to advise them to change their course of action.
Well, let me just, with all due respect, let me just say this. I've been here 24 years, and we have always held the Texas Hospital Association up in deep respect. We've always looked to them for their opinions and their advice and their counsel on medical matters that impact hospitals in both rural and urban Texas. I'm a little befuddled today on why we would discard the testimony of the Texas Hospital Association when it's something that we want. Just because we want it doesn't make it so. And if people keep saying to you, no, 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 but if we're so bent on saying yes, 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 quite frankly, it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what the Texas Hospital Association says, it doesn't matter what the rules are. If we are driven by an end result, irrespective of what people say, that's what's going to happen at the end of the day.
Can I speak with the gentleman yell for questions?
I'd be more than happy to yell.
And what I don't understand, we heard Mr. Smithy a while ago, I think eloquently set to bed that I listened to your questioning and your discussion with the lady from the hospital administration, the lobbyist, lawyer, and she said that basically she had no evidence. She couldn't tell why.
That is not what she said.
Wouldn't you agree she couldn't
That is not what she
why?
said, Representative Phillips. That is not what she said. And simply because you are saying it so doesn't make it so.
Did you get the transcript?
I got the transcript, Representative Phillips.
Okay, well, I would love to see it because I think, and let me ask you a question. Are you aware that over 2/3 of those doctors currently have privileges, which totally pales in the face of that evidence that you supposedly claim she has? Was that you and your
The person representing the Hospital Association came under oath. I've never heard the figures that was just presented. That was just given by Representative Laudenberg. I do know that when it comes to San Antonio, Dallas, and Harris County, that's where most of these physicians are that are practicing in these clinics with hospital privileges. Just because you say it's so doesn't make it so. You do not have the right to create your own facts. Now, let me finish.
Are you saying that Mr. Smithy and Ms. Laudenberg are being dishonest and untruthful to this body?
Representative Phillips, I'm talking to you.
I understand.
Okay, I'm talking to you.
Yes.
And just because you come to the mic and elevate your voice doesn't make what you're saying true, right, or correct.
Are you talking about elevating voices?
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, you know,
The master of it.
you can believe in something, Representative Phillips. You can believe in something, but if the facts speak contrary to your opinion,
Right.
your opinion remains an opinion, ill-advised, unsubstantiated, and cannot stand on the legs of which you were trying to place it. The facts are what the facts are.
But so would you withdraw your amendment if the facts and they gave you that information? It's very clear that 2/3 have admitting privileges.
Representative Phillips, what the representative...
Representative Stevenson raises a point of order. The gentleman's time has expired. The point of order is well taken and sustained.
That was an
Quit
assault,
smoking, devil.
and I want to file charges. We need to recess for 2 weeks. I have been emotionally traumatized, and we need to recess for 2 weeks so I can re-together my thoughts. I need an ambulatory surgical facility.
Thankfully, fine.
Representative Turner, who is thankfully not injured by the flying devil, presents the amendment. Representative Lavenberg moves to table. The question is on the motion to table. Vote aye, vote no, members. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Representative Lavenberg voting aye. Show Representative Turner voting no. Have all members voted? All members voted. There being 89 ayes, 54 noes, 2 present not voting, the motion to table is sustained. The following amendment, the clerk will read the amendment.